Saka was back and Martinelli coming off the bench, more options for the manager.
Yeah.
Real Madrid lost at the weekend. The lights have gone down. They're trying to take Simon out of the picture.
I've just had my pocket picked.
I can understand that.
I think they're drivel lights. I think they go down when Martin starts talking.
Yeah.
You ask somebody a question, Martin, they give you an answer, they go, well, that's not an important answer.
You asked the question for Angus then.
Well,
you tell me who was significantly was out
I
for
didn't need to
Liverpool.
answer the You asked the question.
No. You want to get involved in it?
No.
You tell me who you think
he gave you
who
an
was a
answer.
significant player. Stop protecting your mate.
I
Look at your face.
I would assume.
We've had a Liverpool fan who's been on telling us that it's Arsenal's title. Unusual Monday morning, is it not? The much travelled Mr. Keown back from Merseyside. What was it, Everton Arsenal you were on?
I found it an emotional day. Goodison obviously no longer at the end of the season.
Of course.
So, yeah, poignant afternoon for me, watching in obviously two clubs that I enjoyed playing for. It seemed like Arsenal were just sort of an exercise to get through the match with securing players, getting them fit for Tuesday night, with one eye on trying to win the game. And then we had this incredible decision by the referee, gave a penalty that just non-existent contact, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that was...
Arteta was angry, apparently. He was angry about it.
I think as well, Darren England, you look at his quality of his refereeing, and it was questionable. There was a couple of decisions that he made in the game, a bit slow to pick up the pace, and we need better than that.
Okay. Before we go any further, what does your instinct tell you? Arsenal, Real Madrid, do they overcome them over two legs?
Well, it was good to see that Saka was back and Martinelli coming off the bench, more options for the manager.
Yeah.
Real Madrid lost at the weekend. The lights have gone down. They're trying to take Simon out of the picture.
I've just had my pocket picked.
I can understand that.
I think they're drivel lights. I think they go down when Martin starts talking.
Yeah.
You got in early.
We're in a new studio here, Jim. It's like a bloody broom cupboard, isn't it?
It is.
Hey.
It is quite small. It is intimate, so don't
We
be
may
having
sound
any ideas.
echoey as well.
Yeah, when the lights go down, just keep your distance. Martin, you touched on it. Is it silly or is it quite legitimate to claim that refereeing has helped rob us all of squeaky bum time in this title race? In other words, had it hadn't been for a whole bunch of refereeing decisions, Arsenal would have been breathing down Liverpool's neck a lot more closely.
Jim, I think with a bit more good luck from an Arsenal point of view, okay, they've been besieged with that bug, that injury bug has been really big for the Arsenal to contend with, key players out, but you have to hold your hand up to Liverpool and say they've been the better team, all over. I think that they are stronger in every department, and Arsenal will address that. Obviously, it's a case of, Liverpool now have had a difficult run of fixtures, but Arsenal needed to be close at this point to make it count, and they weren't able to do that, were they, Jim? Far too many draws this season. You're looking at runs that Arsenal have gone on. I think it's 21 games. They've lost one match, Arsenal.
Yeah.
That's not bad either, is it?
But
they're not winning enough matches.
But you are conceding this morning that it'd be silly, it'd be stupid to claim that refereeing has helped rob us of squeaky bum time.
I don't think it's helped Arsenal's cause. Decisions, sending offs that we've seen.
Yeah.
Declan Rice one, I found that ridiculous to take that one in. We've seen a penalty given against Arsenal with Pedro at Brighton. We've seen a penalty given away at the weekend. Anyone who was at that game would be, I think David Moyes even was, if he'd have been pressed, he might have said we were lucky there to get that penalty. So, things go with you and against you, and this season hasn't helped for Arsenal, has it?
Yeah, I mean, you could argue it evens itself out over the season, Simon.
I think most people, sensible people, say that you make your own luck. Luck is a commodity in every aspect of things, whether it's business or football or just life per se. Putting yourself in the right way of circumstances enables you.
You can be unlucky though, can't you?
Well, I think you make your own luck. I think you, over a course of 38 games, you peak and you trough and you take the rough for the smooth. And ultimately, how you take the rough defines the benefits of the smooth in the longer game. I mean, Arsenal have the potential. I mean, I hope that they beat Real Madrid because they're an English club. They have the potential of going for another season without winning anything. And I don't know what that means and what it should mean. I mean, is there progress this season? Difficult to see. And you can give nuance and you can give all the context that you want, but at the end of the day, the history books don't look at context and nuance. They don't go back and say XYZ player was available, XYZ player wasn't available. They look at the outcomes.
Yeah.
In front of your eyes, I don't think Arsenal have evolved as a team.
Yeah, but Simon, they've maintained a strong challenge.
Sure they have, yeah, because others have fallen away. If Manchester City had been a more competitive side, if Tottenham had been a more competitive side, then you might find yourself in a different situation. But they have they've been the best of a bad bunch. Liverpool top of the tree, away they go, up, up and away.
Yeah.
But of the also-rans, Arsenal have been the best of a bad bunch of competitive forces in the league, and I don't think that's arguable. I think Newcastle coming up and Villa coming up is a great one to compress the idea, or to distill the idea, or to diminish the idea that there's only 3 or 4 sides in the league that can get into the top 4. These are good things for the Premier League.
Yeah.
But as far as a competitive title tilt, Arsenal were the best.
I think
of
there's
a
been
bad
good
bunch.
positive points when Aries done really well, Maitland. Miles, I've forgotten his name now. Lewis Skelly.
Lewis
Skelly's coming in. Okay, he's made a few mistakes, but he looks a fantastic talent. The 2 central defenders are as good as
you
any.
can make a case, Martin.
Yeah,
but again,
and I think Liverpool next season, Salah and Van Dijk and Trent are not there.
do you accept best of a bad bunch?
No, I think that's a bit harsh. I think definitely the injuries to Arsenal, the suspensions, have played a major part in what's happened this season. You know, those key games at the start of the season, very difficult away matches. Everything counts, Jim. You know, if you've got to go to Spurs, Villa, Newcastle, Man City away in your first 4 away games, they're tough. It's tough to do all those things. So if you want to go through and to have a look at it, with a looking glass and have a look and see, it's been a tough season for Arsenal, but they'll hold their hands up and say Liverpool were better.
Arsenal invincible, Mr. Keown alongside Simon. Richard is a big Arsenal fan. Richard, good morning. Where do you stand on this?
Hello. I'm just worried about Arsenal because I think we've settled into a kind of being best of the rest mindset really for the best part of sort of 15 years really. It took us sort of 8 or 9 years to realise that Arsene Wenger had to go, so effectively it took us the best part of a decade to actually say goodbye to a manager who's past his best. Obviously Arteta's done a good job, but what worries me is it was clear even at the beginning of last season, at the beginning of last year, that we needed someone like Isak or someone like Ollie Watkins as a striker. And it worries me, we've not had a top-level striker since Thierry Henry. So we haven't won the league for 21 years, and we haven't actually had a top-level striker again for the best part of 2 decades.
Nobody better to put it to than the man sitting opposite me, Richard, saying, Martin Keown, Arsenal, are they in danger of having settled to be the best of the rest?
Look, Jim, I know this is a narrative you're trying to create. From an Arsenal point of view, we should be looking at the Real Madrid game. The title's been over now for a number of weeks, and we all know where it needs to be addressed. They need to buy a centre forward. There's no doubt about that. But if you look at the end of last season, they won 14 of the last 16 games, scored 91 goals. They were scoring goals collectively, and no one was complaining about it at that point. Okay, 1 or 2 felt we needed a different type of striker, someone, an Ian Wright or a Romrey. It's finding that player, isn't it? And the new director of football now has come in, and that will be the directive. That has to be addressed. But I don't think there's any point, Jim, picking through.
Well, not me. It's Richard you should be addressing. Richard's point. Richard's an Arsenal fan.
No, you have created the topic for him to phone in on. Okay, and I think the topic now is almost old hat. Arsenal now know where they need to improve, and that is in the final third of the pitch.
You could be argued the outcome's almost old hat as well.
No, look. The refereeing decisions and ill discipline are connected, but I think Arsenal have suffered in those situations. The Miles Skelly one, for instance, they won that game away at Wolves, probably the only game they won, when it was rescinded. Prove that. So the penalty at the weekend, a lot of people felt that it wasn't a penalty. Right. Every decision that Arsenal involved in, Jim, is kind of like generational. We're seeing generational decisions. Pedro, penalty that was given away. Clash of heads,
generational decision.
Yeah, we don't often see two players.
Do you want to come back at Martin on that, Richard?
Yes. I worry that Arteta's a relatively young manager, and he's led really by a young group of players. And I think we just got to look back and look at the bigger picture. When Jurgen Klopp left Liverpool halfway through last season, a lot of us thought, what are they going to do? But they've gone out and they've got a winner on a slot. And I'm sorry, but...
You're suggesting, Richard, that we change our manager? Is that what you're suggesting?
Martin, this has been going on for about 15 years.
No, but he's only been there 5 years. I say only because obviously 5 years is a lengthy period. But I feel that they were making the necessary steps towards something a little bit special, and sometimes that pathway to be successful is a longer road, and it's obviously going to be that way for Arsenal, isn't it?
Richard, you might be in business if you overcome Real Madrid.
But then we've got to probably face Liverpool, who are clearly better than us.
Okay, we're talking Liverpool. Richard, thanks for the call. Mark's a Liverpool fan with an interesting take. Mark, good morning.
Good morning and welcome. I'd like to make Martin Keown's day. I am a Liverpool supporter, and I believe, looking at it, that Arsenal are going to win the title. And I could break that down for you as to why, if you would like.
Yeah, please do. Not on this occasion, they're not going to win the title, but at some stage soon, you're saying?
No, this season. I believe Arsenal will win the title this season.
Goodness
and
me.
the reason for that is I believe Salah signed a new contract because he's playing awful. And if you look back historically, every time Salah signs a new contract, he plays awful for about 10 games. And that's what he's doing right now. Looking at the remaining fixtures, I can go through them, but I believe the points will be 81 points to Liverpool, 83 points to Arsenal. And the Liverpool-Arsenal game will more or less be the title decider.
Mark, you're on a wind-up. Surely you're on a wind-up. This has to be clearly, this theirs, isn't it? Liverpool's title, isn't it?
Absolutely
There's
not.
no way that Arsenal can win this now.
Right, Martin, let me just say this to you. Okay, Liverpool's next 3 games, West Ham at home, win. Leicester at home, win. Spurs at home, we could draw that. Chelsea away, we could lose that. Arsenal at home, we could lose that. Brighton away is a tough game, we could lose that. And Palace are our bogey team, we could get a draw. That puts us on 81 points.
And you're a Liverpool fan?
Absolutely. I'm being realistic.
Sam,
I'm going down the bookies after this.
Are you as bemused as me? Mark, we're utterly bemused by that, mate.
Well, listen, I mean, he's given you a reason why he thinks those points titles are going to be achieved. I don't think it's realistic. I don't think Arsenal are going to win the next 7 games. And I think that Liverpool are going to win the Liga and win the Liga at canter. As Martin points out, Arsenal's focus now, probably rightly so, is to try and win the Champions League.
Yeah, I think so. Angus, Liverpool fan, finish this off for us before we head to the half-time break. Where's your head with all of this morning?
Well, I just can't believe that last caller to start with.
We're the same.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
But my point is where you're saying about Arsenal with the red cards.
Yeah.
We've had injury. Obviously, I'm a Liverpool season ticket at home and away games. We've had injuries. We've had Becker out for a long while, and we've replaced him with Kelleher. Why can't Arsenal do the same?
Yeah, but with all due respect, though, but Angus, that's your goalkeeper, isn't it? So, like every time Arsenal lost a player, Liverpool fans that I knew saw that as a victory in their attempt to win the Premier League. And every time there was something, wasn't it? It was Havertz, it was Jesus, it was Saka, it was Ødegaard. It was sendings off. Whenever it goes to the VAR screen, it always came out Liverpool's way, didn't it? So if you look at it through the season, and we've all been through that mill, and we hold our hands up and say, yeah, Liverpool deserve to win it. But, you can't say that Arsenal, it's not lucky Arsenal anymore, is it? No?
No, it's not lucky Arsenal. No, I agree with that. But we replace our players. We've had other players that are injured, and we get somebody else to replace them.
Well, who would that be then? We're in a significant position if you think you've lost a player this season, Angus.
Trent. But we've got Conor Bradley in, who's been a worldie.
Yeah, but that right back, can you not suffer that? A right back, full back? A player that maybe looks like he wants to leave anyway? And he's a great talent, isn't he, Conor Bradley? Been held back.
Superb, yeah. And hopefully he'll progress now, and their trends go.
But I can think,
Angus, it's your title though, mate, isn't it?
Oh, 100%.
Of course
100%.
it is.
That last call, I don't know what he was on. I really don't.
We're not quite sure ourselves. But we invite the calls on and we get the calls on.
You ask somebody a question, Martin, they give you an answer, they go, but that's not an important answer. You've had other players in your team that you signed. You signed Raheem Sterling, who hasn't turned up for your
question.
season.
Okay, you answer the question for Angus then.
Well,
you tell me who significantly was out
I
for
didn't need to
Liverpool.
answer the question. You asked the question.
No. You want to get involved in it.
No.
You tell me who you think
he gave you
who
an
was a
answer.
significant player.
He gave you an answer.
He doesn't want to answer.
Well, I would say
No.
Trent.
Stop protecting your mate.
I would
Look at your face.
I would assume that Trent Alexander-Arnold was a significant player. But for the purpose of your argument, he's not.
Yeah, but I'm talking about in the final third. So for the final,
but you didn't qualify, did you?
Who in the final third?
If the argument was Arsenal's leaking goals and they'd lost a couple of their defensive unit, you'd turn around and say it was a defensive problem. Whatever argument the
Arsenal have lost 4 fullbacks.
And Arsenal had alternate players in that team to be able, like going away to West Ham and losing 1-0. You had Sterling on the bench.
That was at home. It wasn't away. It was at home.
Okay, fine, even worse.
Let's be right though with this.
Well, even worse, Martin. Even worse. Then it makes my point even more succinctly. Arsenal lose a game against West Ham at home. Is that luck? Is that bad performance? Is it a lack of fortitude from the players?
I think they had one shot in the game, West Ham. It was all Arsenal.
Then Arsenal must have had none on target.
They've done them on the break.
So we've had a Liverpool fan who's been on telling us that it's Arsenal's title. Unusual Monday morning, is it not? What about the Manchester derby? Not exactly one to write home about, was it? At the end of the day, this was a drab affair. No goals in it at Old Trafford. Is it ever acceptable for a derby match to become a bit of a drab affair? Should it ever exude a pre-season feel, which is exactly what this one did? Ruben Amorim spoke about it post-match. And he spoke also about the observations from one Gary Neville about this match being something of a love-in.
I understand everything. I understand that Gary Neville is critical about everything, so I understand that part. And then I understand that we are not fighting. We are in the moment that we are doing the worst season in history. Manchester City won everything in the past. This season is struggling, so we are not in the best moments to give the best spectacle to every fans. And then when we are not fighting for the big things, of course it's different. But you have to look at the context of the game, and I understand the critical aspect of the players that played in this game in a different way, because they were fighting every time for the titles. So it's a different context.
I think what Amorim was saying there at the end of it all is it's maybe not the Manchester derby that we've been used to for many years, the one that we witnessed yesterday. Here's the thing though, Simon, a remarkable Manchester fall from grace, but by both clubs' standards, who do you think has fallen harder this season? Who's fallen further?
Oh, United. I don't like the way that Amorim's too comfortable. Keep on saying it's the worst season. I know it's a way of disarming the questions that are inevitably coming, because it's going to be them say it or him saying it. But he seems to be remarkably relaxed about keep on trotting out that line. I'm sure that everyone gets the picture that he probably didn't want to come in mid-season, and ultimately it's not his team and he has a style of play. But the object of the aim was to raise the room, not dampen the spirits, not manage people's expectations so you under-promise and over-deliver.
Yeah, but Ten Hag, remember, Simon, used to say everything's rosy. Don't worry about it. We'll get there. At least Amorim's calling it for what it is.
Well, Amorim is creating these outcomes. If you change something, the object of the aim isn't to make it worse. The argument about Ten Hag was you can't persevere with this guy. You need to change. So when you change, you surely can't usher somebody in that's going to make it worse. Now, I'm a great believer in things are, to some extent, a marathon, not necessarily a sprint. And I mean that you get a passage of time where you are able to affect change. But this United outfit, albeit better in recent weeks, is miles off. And he is very relaxed about seemingly trotting out that little piece of information about this as the worst Manchester United team, as if it's some sort of badge of honour.
So in his programme notes, ahead of the Manchester derby, is he wrong? To me, it's clear to see we're making progress in our performances, but we need to ensure that we improve our results.
Jim, the last two performances...
Is that wrong?
I watched them against Forest, and it seemed to me that finally, the information that he's stitching in with the players is seeping through. But I'm not really seeing enough in front of goal. 23 shots, only 6 on target in that game. Yesterday, 2 shots on target. So they're only doing one half of it. They're a team that just sits passively really quite deep. It doesn't challenge for possession. It doesn't get on the ball and make things happen. It's not going to get the fans back. And then their wing-backs, I don't think technically have the ability in the final third, decision-making. Dogu in high positions, shooting over the bar, and Wild. And this is a player he's brought in, so you're thinking that technically they'd actually improve. I don't like the system. I've said it many times. I think the system's flawed. I would like to have seen the manager say, okay, let's tear this up for now. Of course, my long-term vision is to play a 3-4-2-1, but I'll play 4-3-3 for now to get results.
But you know something, Martin? With the two Manchester clubs in mind, is it crazy to suggest that with the Europa League in play, this could still turn out to be a better season for Amorim and United than Pep and City? Couldn't it?
Well, if they qualify for the Champions League, but then City would have done the same, wouldn't they?
If they win the thing, it's a route into the Champions League.
Well, I mean, we look at both teams. No one really looked, because it's all Man United based amongst all the former players. We never really talked about City.
Manchester City could easily finish 6th.
Yeah, they could. And if you start to look at some of their fixtures, and I mean, the number of points they've got.
Win the FA Cup,
what are they, 52 points?
Well, they win the... Yeah, but that doesn't get you in the Champions League.
No, but they can only get 73 points between now and the end of the season. They were getting 100 points just a few seasons ago, Man City.
So if Amorim and United win the Europa League, and City, albeit end up with the FA Cup, but that's it, it's a better season for United, isn't it?
Well,
they win the Europa League, they're in the Champions League.
But no, your league position, Jim, 14th, where are they? 13th, 14th in the Premier League. That's embarrassing for Manchester United,
of course.
So, okay, you come out of it, you rescue something going forward, but, it's there for them. And they can shut everybody up with a trophy and a chance to play in next year's Champions League and a Europa League in the bag. But Man City's way ahead of Manchester United right now. This manager will rebuild the club and start all over again. They're starting with De Bruyne. De Bruyne, he's football royalty, De Bruyne, and he's now being allowed to leave the building because he wants to start again.
Of Manchester United, Manchester City, way ahead.
I think there are lots of teams in the Premier League that are way ahead of Man United for a variety of reasons, not just Man City. I mean, I don't think it's a given that Man City will just bounce back next season, that ultimately we're going to see them re-emerge back as the formidable force that they want, because the illusion has gone. The perception of getting beat by Man City is no longer there now. Teams believe they can get at Manchester City for a variety of different reasons. Now, I don't doubt he'll change it, and I don't doubt he'll make it more competitive. He's already started to do that. He's already made changes in the January window. They haven't affected particularly better outcomes, but notwithstanding that, I expect Man City to be better. Manchester United are at such a low ebb that the Europa League, a tournament that you would pick Manchester United to potentially win, is going to be given as a get out of jail card and a benchmark of saying, have they salvaged the season? Because they've got the financial benefits of being in a participation competition that they've got no chance of winning next year based upon the quality that they've got either in their dugout right now, with his thinking, and on the field. So if they come away. Did you think that Manchester United had some sort of redemption last year by winning the FA Cup? Because clearly some people did, and they made the argument in regards to...
Well, Ten Hag got a new contract out of it. Yeah.
So I mean,
but if United win the Europa League, Simon,
but it's an interesting one. No one seems to be making the argument that maybe Man United had their eyes on the Europa League this week. We make the argument in Arsenal's favour when Arsenal are not playing very well yesterday. That ultimately that they've got on Saturday. Sorry, they've got a reason for that because they've got Real Madrid. Well, United are playing Lyon in the Europa League, the one competition they can win. So maybe their motivations, their intensity was a little bit off because they were thinking...
there were a couple of players rested, weren't they, yesterday? Maybe with an eye.
Thinking about maybe the Europa League game.
Yeah, could well be. It's incumbent upon me to mention Arsenal for the last time today to Arsenal invincible Martin Keown.
Huge game coming up,
sitting opposite me in the studio. Real Madrid tomorrow night, the first of two in the Champions League. Has Arsenal's season come down to this week?
Yeah, of course it has. The exercise at the weekend was to get valuable minutes from key players. I thought Timber looked in good health. Maybe Ben White's not quite ready. Obviously Saka 73 minutes in just 2 games since Christmas, so he's been out for a long time. Some big decisions for the manager to make, but there are now players coming back from injury. Makes it look more promising. That home game though, Jim, is really important, and last year against Bayern Munich they didn't really know how to approach the game. It was a 2-2 draw. I think this time around they've really got to go for it, but obviously without Gabriel at the back, look at that pace that Vinicius brings, and Mbappe, some of the best players on the planet right now. That's what Arsenal need to contend with.
And Martin, I can throw this at you.
They don't need to fear them, though. They don't need to fear them.
In the last few moments, Bukayo Saka has been talking about the prospect of coming up against Real Madrid.
For me, I want to win, and I want to win wearing this badge. So I think it's pretty clear. The fans know how much I love them, and when you saw when I came on Tuesday, I think they love me back. So it's a good relationship, and I'm really happy to be here, and I'm just focused on winning here.
There has been talk, Martin, if they don't win something soon, and maybe some of the top players will go. You heard Saka there. I want to win. And I want to win wearing this badge. That must be music to your ears, right?
Yeah, and I think if we look at Saka, since this manager's been there, and I was really pleased for Martinelli as well against Fulham in midweek, a return to that kind of form that we saw, because both those players have been key to everything that Arteta's done since he's been at the club. They've been there since the start. He's built the team around them. Declan Rice now in that midfield, it's going to be a really big night for him. Kiwior coming in to replace Gabriel. Has he got that pace?
Without Gabriel, can you keep Mbappe out?
Well, this is the question. And at the same time, how deep are you defending? You've got to go for it and try and win the game, of course. And Marino as well, makeshift striker. He is chipping in, Jim, with lots of goals. Not ideal, but there's a fighting chance for Arsenal. When you see they lost at the weekend again, Real Madrid, I think they conceded 8 goals in the last 4 matches. So there are opportunities. They are vulnerable.
Yeah.
But the business end of the season, they come really good for the Champions League. So that's what Arsenal are up against.
Who do you think? Give Arsenal any hope over the 2 legs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very difficult because of all the things that you've laid out. But it's not beyond Arsenal. I mean, no one would have forecast they went to PSV and smashed them 7 away from home. So I think Arsenal have got a fighter's chance, and I would like to see them do well. I'd like to see them get past Madrid because I get tired of listening to Madrid's dominance over European football.
Yeah,
and how they're the club that everyone wants to play for and everyone wants to go to.
Are you showing a bias towards Arsenal in front of Martin?
Unusual.
I'm perfectly objective to it. I think Arsenal are one of the biggest. The idea of Saka leaving Arsenal, they're one of the biggest clubs in the world. They're one of the biggest clubs in English football. There's no doubt about it. So the question was always, Arteta has to win something there rather than an FA Cup in his first season during a COVID year.
Arsenal make for a formidable opponent, Jim, in this competition. Real Madrid will know about that after tomorrow night. Let's see what happens.
Fighting talk. I like that talk. We're talking the Manchester derby. We're talking the fact that it was drab, no goals in it, and not much to see here. But what it was the final Manchester derby that Kevin De Bruyne will play in. On Friday, he announced that he'll leave Manchester City when his contract expires at the end of the season. He's done the lot. He's 33. He's won 16 trophies since joining from Wolfsburg in 2015, including 6 Premier League titles and the Champions League in 2023. Pep says De Bruyne is one of the greatest midfielders to ever play in this country. And he's not wrong in that. And yet, Chelsea had him. And Chelsea let him go eventually. Mourinho, though, who was in charge at the time, addressed that in 2021 right here on talkSPORT when he reflected on the fact that De Bruyne was the one that got out of Chelsea.
He impressed me so much that I made the decision, I don't want this kid to go on loan. I want this kid to stay. And first match of the season, we played at home against Hull City, and he started the first match of the Premier League. Second match, we go to Old Trafford, and after this, he come to me and he says, I want to play every match, I want to play every minute. And the kid that was supposed to go on loan was not even happy to stay and to grow up in there. And to be an ended product in there. So he put by himself a lot of pressure to leave. He wanted to go.
So that was Mourinho telling us that De Bruyne, basically, Simon, wanted to be an automatic starter.
That's his version of it.
That's his version of events. Do you believe that?
No. I would imagine that the kid's got confidence and wanted to be part of the plans, but I would be surprised. Mourinho's positioning it in such a way that there's no reason why Mourinho could be criticised for that talent to have escaped out the door. And of course, he's got the data on his side to say that he played against Hull in the opening game of the season, which I would imagine is not a game that Chelsea wouldn't have expected to win, irrespective of whether they had a young kid in the side anyway. So for him, Mourinho, to paint the picture, I think it's a little bit disingenuous. I suspect the lad is probably confident, probably wanted to have some understanding of a situation. What he's painting him as somebody that probably didn't want to go on loan, but was presented with an opportunity to go on loan, didn't take it, and now all of a sudden he's saying the kid that was wanting to go on loan wasn't even satisfied that he was getting played. And so I had no choice. He then put pressure on the club to suggest they want to leave. I would suspect there's probably a little bit more nuance to it.
Yeah, but maybe that if you look at how he's coming out of the top level, is maybe the way that he went into the top level. So 2 big managers, Mourinho, no, you need to be patient. No, actually, I want to play. Okay, maybe De Bruyne is a little bit tricky to manage. Maybe it's the same now. Maybe it's like the new manager saying, well, okay, maybe it's best to let you go because I couldn't hold you back and play you in every game, and that's not going to be fair to you. Because surely you would still have had a part to play. I mean, in every successful team,
isn't that the skill of management then?
Yeah, but obviously then it comes down to the individual character. So maybe De Bruyne has that about him where he's such a driving force. It's better for him to not be a part of the group if he can't play in every match.
But I think it's probably a different comparison because De Bruyne is reaching the end of his career rather than at the beginning of his career. And ultimately, a talent is a talent. I know when Victor Moses was at Chelsea, young players were marginalised by Mourinho. I'm a Mourinho fan. But Mourinho looks in front of his nose and he looks at what he thinks is an established player. Moses couldn't get in the side because he wasn't a big-name player. So he played Oscar. Oscar played there all the time, and all of a sudden Oscar is out of favour, goes off to China. The next kid comes in, Conte comes in, plays Moses, they win the league the next season.
Yeah, but there's a process, isn't it? There's a process, and Chelsea were doing exceptionally well in that period. Okay, Mo Salah went as well, so it wasn't a great time, was it? In and around Chelsea, letting top players go, but they were still getting results on the pitch, still winning Champions Leagues. You know, in that period under the last ownership, they were winning something like 21 trophies.
The question is, question was asked of me, do I believe Mourinho's version of events? And given I spend most of my time in this conversation with you defending Mourinho against even the most worst of transgressions, I think that there's nothing wrong with an ambitious young player. I think in that day, I think De Bruyne is a very strong-minded fellow. I think he's one of the few people during the COVID period that sat on Zoom calls representing himself without his agents being there, and very much has his own mind, and it manifests itself in his game. My version of the conversation is I doubt he came into an office to tell that he would be leaving unless he got played every single minute of every single game.
I'm not surprised that Jose automatically feels uncomfortable every time De Bruyne at Chelsea comes up.
Well, look, deep down, he's gone on and he's had an incredible career. This is one of the best players we've ever seen in the Premier League.
Oh, of course, we know that.
The thing is like, is it too soon to move him on? And we're looking at Man City, and yesterday's great programme and coverage didn't give us a chance to talk about Man City. Today, maybe we should be. I'm looking at the City new signings, Mamouche and apart, and I'm thinking, okay, are any of these really good enough to succeed the team that who've just been really successful for the last 6 or 7 seasons? I'm not so sure they are. Savinho in the summer was a signing, Gundogan coming back. There's a rebuild. And if you look between now and the end of the season, there's a massive possibility that Man City do not make it into the Champions League. That's as big a news as the Manchester United story. I'm sorry, but it needs to be discussed, and we didn't hear enough of it. They play Palace next, the run that Palace are on, quite remarkable. Everton, lost 1 game in 11. They play Villa, who've lost 1 in 11 also, and then Forest in the FA Cup. These are huge games for Man City. They need to wake up soon.
Yeah.
And they need to
sound worried about them, Martin.
Well, I don't understand quite what's gone on internally. Walker being allowed to leave.
He wanted out, didn't he?
Yes, but all is not well, obviously, internally. But this manager, you have to say, in 2016,
So in your view, unless everything lasts forever and no one else ever wins anything, then there's trouble in the camp.
No, I'm saying the rebuild should have started sooner. And I think the manager's now committed to that.
But I would suspect that, with due respect to you and your management credentials, that Pep Guardiola knows a damn sight more about picking players, buying players, and rebuilding teams than you do. So the fact that he's gone out and bought these players as part of his rebuild, and you're concerned about those players, probably doesn't really give him much cause for thought.
What's interesting is probably they're on 52 points, and we're used to seeing them on 100 or 90, 95. It's really not clicking. They're not finding a way to win, and I think there's concern for Man City fans.
Again,
for the first time
I would suspect that a big part of that might be, and it shouldn't be just that, should it? But that Rodri it's been a massive miss for them. In the
Can't
same
be
way
about one player, though.
Well, you've made it about individual players at times.
Yeah, but one player, fine. One player you can carry, right? But not Arsenal have had a succession of
injuries. For quite a while, to be fair, though, Martin, you did say the same about Saka. He is so important to Arsenal. Rodri is vitally important to Manchester City.
Yeah, but when you think, though, that the players that they've got available, you thought that they would have been able to recover better than they have. Look, there have been so many false dawns this season. We think they've actually turned the corner, and I'm not seeing it. Yesterday, I didn't see De Bruyne. I mean, did De Bruyne, in his performance yesterday, did you think that he had the options in front of him that he's had in the past? Could he form relationships with some of those players?
Well, I think the question that needs to be asked is, can Manchester City get back to the summit without Kevin De Bruyne?
Well, I think they can.
And I think the answer to that is yes.
Well, with Pep, we know that you never discount him, and you always finds a way to be successful. But right now, this is probably the worst season I can remember him having. And he went 2016 without winning a trophy. He might rescue it with the FA Cup, but the Champions League is much bigger than that, Jim. And he's struggling right now to make that.
Yeah, of course. They're a long way off it. So much so they're not even in it. Southampton fans this morning, you knew it was coming. Well, it came at Tottenham. 2 wins from 31 games and 25 defeats and 10 points in total with 74 goals conceded. It's a sorry story if you're a Southampton fan. And it was confirmed just yesterday that Southampton have been relegated from the Premier League. It's our understanding here at talkSPORT that the departure of the manager Ivan Jurić is imminent. Would that make any sense, Simon? If he was to go today with a handful of games to go, they knew they were going down. It was a question of not if, but when. And now we know
I think it makes about as much sense as it made appointing him in the first place. I never felt that there was an appointment that had anything about it that was exciting to me. I assumed it's because they share a mother tongue, that they could relate to one another. I mean, I'm assuming he's got some football nous around him because the guy's certainly a successful businessman. But I look at the situation with Russell Martin, and I know that he was dissatisfied at the beginning of the season, but wasn't able to convey that message to the manager. I know it's a boundary between managers and owners that you don't dare tell them what to do, but there is a balance between saying you want to stay in the Premier League and allowing a manager to run a philosophy that's clearly harming you, at the same time as then making an appointment. I don't know if he had an embarrassment of riches. Southampton is a good football club that's just got promoted in the Premier League. There'll be a desirable job there.
Yeah.
For this man to have come in and achieve virtually nothing. In fact, he's made them worse, if that was possible. And so I don't know whether he goes because the players have no regard for him whatsoever, so it's wasting time by keeping him there and seeding the toxicity into a dressing room that's already poor. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is they've been relegated for weeks and months. So you could have made this decision any time you wanted to. The optics of it now are you've been confirmed. Or did anyone think that with 10 points after 30 games that Southampton was suddenly going to perform a miracle and get out of it?
Martin, I'm quite sure you want your take on this as well. The story's running that Jurić has either gone or is about to go. My colleague here at talkSPORT, Alex Crook, joins us live. Alex, what do you know? Is he out of there?
Yeah, good morning, Jim. We're waiting for official confirmation from Southampton, but I would expect that to come imminently, maybe as early as today. We reported when Ivan Jurić was first named Southampton manager that there would be a relegation break clause in the contract allowing the club to part company. Should he not keep them up, they were probably doomed to relegation when he came in, but I tend to agree with Simon. I think it's been an absolutely disastrous appointment. They've arguably got worse, not better. I think I'm right in saying he won one Premier League game. He's been trotting out the line for the last couple of weeks. Their only aim now is to avoid becoming officially the worst team in Premier League history and not eclipsing that record low tally of 11 points set by Derby. I'm not sure that's what the fans nor the players want to hear. I didn't understand the appointment in the first place. He's the polar opposite of what Russell Martin was. The squad was not built for his type of football. I'm told his man management left a lot to be desired. He pretty much lost the players within his first couple of training sessions. So this was inevitable. It's another disastrous appointment by Sport Republic. The question now is who they turn to next. Danny Roll is an obvious candidate. I know they looked at him when they appointed Jurić. They didn't want to pay his release clause at the time. He was Ralph Hasenhüttl's former assistant, so that would be another deviation in terms of style. Liam Rosenior, who you guys know well, who's doing well over in France, is another that has admirers, but I'm not sure that the Blue Co group, who own Chelsea, would want to lose him from their group. I think in the short term, Simon Rusk will probably be placed in caretaker charge for the remaining games of the season and try and get Southampton over that line in terms of beating Derby's low tally.
Yeah, Liam Rosenior's an interesting one. Strasbourg in France, Ligue 1, fourth at the weekend after another win for Liam Rosenior. We'll watch for that. Jurić himself has suggested it was bad recruitment, Alex. That has a part to play in it. But let's face it, they've all had a part to play in it, haven't they? Russell Martin before Jurić, the rot had set in. There was contention that he wasn't prepared to change the style of play. And thereafter, it seems Southampton have been pretty much doomed for a considerable period of time.
I mean, you're preaching to the converted when you talk about poor recruitment. I would go back to when Sport Republic first came in. Rasmus Ankersen, one of their board members, was in charge of recruitment for a time, and his famous saying, if it ain't broke, consider breaking it. Well, congratulations, Rasmus Ankersen. You've certainly broken Southampton, not once, but twice. 2 relegations from the Premier League in 3 seasons. 2 utterly avoidable relegations, really. Certainly the first time round, they had better players than their results suggested. Their recruitment in that January after parting company with Ralph Hasenhüttl was disastrous. They put Nathan Jones in situ. Clearly, he wasn't and probably never will be a Premier League manager. So it's been bad decision after bad decision. And I feel for Russell Martin because he was recruited to play a certain style of football last season to get Southampton promoted from the Championship. He achieved that. They didn't necessarily get the players he wanted in the summer. I know for a fact they held talks with Liam Delap and he decided to go to Ipswich instead because they could offer more in terms of wages. He wasn't the only player that Russell Martin wanted to sign that fell by the wayside. And barring Aaron Ramsdale, I don't think they recruited a single player who was good enough to keep Southampton in the Premier League. Their best player under Russell Martin was Tyler Dibbling, but because of the way that he's been mismanaged and manhandled by Ivan Jurić, he looks a shadow of his former self. So a big summer ahead in terms of departures. I would expect Ramsdale to go. I think Dibbling will go, despite this ridiculous £100 million price tag that Southampton have put on him. Kyle Walker-Peters is out of contract. Somebody will probably take Taylor Harwood-Bellis. You're left with a scratch side at best there. I'm not sure it's a given that Southampton bounce straight back this time around.
In the world of boxing, it was a very disappointing night for Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce up against Filip Hrgović, who was a late stand-in, of course, a late replacement for Dillian Whyte. But Hrgović won by unanimous decision, with Joyce now losing 4 of his last 5 fights. Promoter Frank Warren joins us live on the show. Frank, good morning. I mean, I know we don't want to jump the gun because Joe Joyce is a very good guy and would hope to carry on. Do you think he will carry on? What's the latest you can give us? Good morning, Frank.
Good morning, chaps. What do I think? I think it's going to be his decision. He's going to speak to, obviously, his family, his trainer, his manager, and I'm going to have a conversation with him. And then after that, it'll be his decision what he does. But, you know, when you're getting older, he's 9 years of age now. It was a very close fight. I'm not complaining about the decision at all. I think one of the scorecards was off. But I think it's time for him to evaluate what his future will be, because losing that fight means he's going to have to get into, if he comes back and has another fight, it's not going to be easy for him. That's for sure. So I would prefer that he gives it real consideration and not just jump in with both feet, because all fighters are the same. They all want to fight on, every one of them. And there's an old adage in boxing that, for me, is an old adage anyway, is that the first person to know that he's not the fighter he was is the boxer, but he's the last to admit it.
Yeah, indeed. Simon, beside me, Frank, watched it. I mean, you said that as far as you could see, Simon, he just took way too much unnecessary punishment from Hrgović.
Well, it's not unnecessary punishment because Hrgović is not a mug fighter. And Joe Joyce has always taken lots of punishments and has always been susceptible to taking punishment. The difference is now losing fights as a result of taking punishment. I mean, I disagree with Frank, and I know that I will always run into the argument that I never boxed and I don't know what I'm talking about, but I didn't see it as a close fight. I think Hrgović hit him when he wanted to. And the only thing he didn't hit him was a seat from the ringside. I watched the fight wincing because I like Joe Joyce. I don't want to tell him to retire. He's a man of his own mind. I'm assuming those around him that care about him will give him that sort of advice. And if you read between the lines, probably that's where Frank may end up going. Now, he won't say it on air, and I don't blame him, because he has to be diplomatic and allow the fighters to make his right decisions. But I don't want to see Joe Joyce in a ring being used as a punch bag for Moses Atoma or someone like that. And I look at it now and I see him, and I think the fights against Zhilei Zhang did the damage. At one point, he was in real ascendancy after Joe Parker. Zhang was his kryptonite. I don't think he looked good against Cash Ali. Chisora fight was up and down, but he lost it. And in this fight, Hrgović had a shorter camp. He was fit, but not as fit as he could have been for the fight in terms of a full camp. And I thought he was on a different level to Joe. And what Joe was unbelievably game. Unbelievable. But when you're sitting there watching the fight, and I'm listening to the commentators, and I know Frank will probably disagree with me, and I'm listening to Carl Frampton, and I'm listening to Adam Smith, and I'm listening to Darren Barker, I know that they're all elite fighters and elite commentators, and they're saying this fight was close. I just thought that it was difficult to watch, and I thought Joe Joyce, as game as he was getting his face punched in.
Frank, how difficult is it, Frank, just to ask you this question, to convince a boxer that his time is up and you need to rescue him from himself?
It's not even just that, and I'm not applying this to Joe, by the way, but if you are in that position, it's very difficult because it's really simple. As long as he's licensed by a boxer's licensed by the Boxing Board of Control, you can say, I'm not going to promote you anymore, and he'll go off and be promoted by somebody else. Or in the cases years ago, former British champion who beat Mike Tyson, Danny Williams, he went up and fought abroad for years, and there lies the problem. So it's, the Board of Control are there and they're monitoring. I know they tested him quite a few times. He had quite a few tests before the fight. They'll be right on top of this, no doubt about that. And we'll see where it goes. But I only agree with one thing that you said there, Simon. Yep. His game. I watched that fight and I watched what Joe did. What he was doing when he was walking, stepping to his right. A lot of those punches that were getting thrown, they were catching him. But when I say by catch, they weren't landing with full force, and he was riding those punches. You watch it back, and that's where Carl and Darren Barker are fighters themselves. That's where they were coming from in their commentary on the fight.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very, for me, it was a close fight. I'm not complaining about the decision. Could have gone either way, but he did not lose that fight by 6 rounds. It was a judge who refereed the fight between David Adeleye.
Yeah, well, Frank, while we have you on, that's exactly where I want to go. David Adeleye claimed the British heavyweight title, but it was a controversial stoppage of Jamie TKV. Adeleye dropped Jamie twice in the 6th round, the second resulting referee Ron Kearney calling off the fight, but replays, Frank, appeared to show referee Kearney clutching TKV's glove and calling on both fighters to break before Adeleye dropped TKV. I mean, where do we go with this?
Right, where do we go? I watched it at the time. He did call break. I heard him say it because I was sitting right at the front row and I could hear what he said. He did call break, and the momentum of the fight was that David threw his punch and caught him, and as you're saying, he didn't clutch his hand. He pushed his hand away, and I watched it back again. The referee from the start of the fight was, for me, never took proper control of it. It was up, for about the first 3 or 4 rounds. It was a bit of a mauling affair. He should have pulled the fighters apart, had a word with them about it, which he didn't do, but he got it wrong. And David Adelaide's with me. He got it wrong. I've spoken with a board this morning, and they've got a hearing, a board meeting on Wednesday, and no doubt they'll look at that very closely and make a decision as to what will happen. But for me, it's referees in these type of fights, big fights, televised fights. He just wasn't up to it on the night, and I don't want to be criticising boxing. I heard you say I'm in the car at the moment, the early part of the programme, Jim, another controversy with referees. It's like another controversy that we have with football referees as well. Referees are referees, and unfortunately in this one, he did get it wrong.
Okay, Frank, thank you very much for joining us. Frank Warren with us live there, and the referee got it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great comparison, though, isn't it? You don't lose your life on a football field, do you? And referees have to be stronger. And it's an interesting one because I didn't hear Frank when Hamza Shiraz punched Bradley Skeet when he was on the floor, when Bradley Skeet wasn't a prospect and Hamza Shiraz was campaigning for or suggesting that the referee needed to be dealt with. Yeah. That was poor refereeing then. This was poor refereeing on Saturday.
You heard Frank Warren there say that as regards the controversial finish to Adelaide TKV fight at the weekend, he has spoken to the British Boxing Board of Control, and the referee got it wrong.